Yo, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We're good.
Welcome to SEC Football Live. You got started there without me testing my microphone and audio, but I do appreciate it. Here we are, Mizzou. That's right. This is kind of like a Missouri hat I've got on here. Michael Bratton, Braden Gall here. Welcome to the show. Already in progress. As you can tell, my voice is a little shot today after spending a weekend in the Smoky Mountains with my daughters and at an SEC football game that was, as a father, one of the most memorable moments of my entire existence. So we'll get to that coming up. We got a lot of stuff to discuss. We got three teams in the West that are 0-10. What does the future hold for those three teams? And I think I would lump South Carolina and Vanderbilt into those conversations as well in terms of can they make bowl games? And of course, what do we make of the coaching jobs and the futures of all those guys in those positions? Missouri and Florida surging into the second half, 2 huge wins over the weekend. We'll get to them. They've got interesting games coming up. At least Missouri does coming up this weekend. Alabama survives. Tennessee survives. They, of course, will play on the third Saturday in October. So we'll get to that game. Can the Vols make it a dirty rock fight in Tuscaloosa, which is not traditionally the way Josh Heupel's football teams have played. So we've got a lot to discuss. Brock Bowers' injury, of course, is a big one as well. Tim Dodge. Good to see you, Tim, by the way. Big fan. I'm honestly wondering why I watch Auburn football. Mike, how are you, man? Welcome to the show.
MIZ, Braden. We're five. Wait, what are we, 6-1 right now? Braden, Braden, there's three. I already kind of ruined it. There's 3 SEC teams that are bowl eligible. Can you name them?
Who have 6 wins?
Yes, sir.
The Missouri Tigers.
Correct.
The Georgia Bulldogs. And either Bama or Tennessee, one of the two, right?
Alabama. So, I mean, Mizzou once again carrying the conference to glory. What a time to be alive. You know what?
Yep. That's one way of looking at it. Missouri has a bunch of really big games coming up in the East, of course, and they have to I thought this was interesting. They're only a 7.5 point favorite at home against South Carolina. I thought that was an interesting number there because they've clearly been a better football team, but South Carolina not necessarily as bad as its record indicates. They've been in those games. So they obviously think that this is going to be a close game in Columbia. Is it the Mayor's Cup, right? The Mayor's rivalry or whatever. Which Columbia is the better Columbia?
I mean, why did they go with the Columbia Cup or something like that? You know,
the answer is no. If I'm ranking the 14 places in the SEC, I don't think anyone wants to know where I'm putting both Columbias.
How about the A&M South Carolina trophy? Do you know what it's called?
No, but that's because, you know what, as Spurrier said, all them boys from Tennessee. I thought all them boys from Tennessee went down there and died in the Alamo.
They did. I think it's like I have no idea what that's called. Maybe someone can help us out here.
There's a big joke about it, and all the guys that cover South Carolina have been writing about it for a long time. So we'll get to South Carolina, Missouri in just a second. Lots to discuss. Let's start with the Brock Bowers injury just real fast, and then we'll get into I have 2 very different reactions to the Tennessee win over A&M and the view of what that does for the Alabama game. Mm-hmm. And I want to get your thoughts on what you saw from Alabama as well. So I want to get into all of that. By the way, please go ahead.
It's the John Bonham Trophy, the drummer from Led Zeppelin.
Yes. If they could just get Little Bonzo to play a reunion tour, I would spend all of my life savings to go watch them play. Either way. Missouri carrying the SEC to glory equals the little brother finally getting to put a hurt on someone after getting picked on. They did step right into the league and win 2 divisions, just for what it's worth. I want to get to all that stuff, but I want to start with Brock Bowers because the tightrope surgery that he has on the high ankle sprain, that was something that I covered here in Nashville last year. Brock Bowers, of course, out. They're saying as quick as 3 weeks. I'm telling you that's probably unlikely. Maybe more like 4 to 6 weeks potentially for him. They've got all their tough games coming up. But I think here's what I learned last year. Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback for the Titans, the team I cover here locally, had an injury early in the season in the NFL. Injured the ankle, gutted through it, played like 6 games, and then hurt it again on December 14th, like week 15 in the NFL season, week 14 maybe. He then has the surgery, the exact same surgery that Brock Bowers has. He has the tightrope surgery in hopes of him returning 4 weeks later to play in the season finale for the Titans to try to win their way into the playoff. He gets put on IR. He never comes close to playing for the Titans last year. And now this week he hurt it again in week 6 in London. So I don't know what the injury this year means. I don't think it means anything. I do think Georgia fans should prepare for the back end of that time frame for Brock Bowers' injury. And I also think, more importantly, you can probably win a lot of these games on your schedule without him. What matters is if you need him for the SEC championship game or if you need him for playoff games. I would hold him out until the playoff because I don't know if Georgia misses the playoff. Like, I don't know if I'm changing my prediction on Georgia because of the Bowers injury. Mike, are you?
Well, my prediction was LSU, so nope, I ain't changing it. I ain't changing it, But is it different at all if it's I mean, I know a lot of quarterbacks. You referenced Tannehill too. I'm sure there's others. But tight end and quarterback, that's very different. They're asking them to do different things, cutting and blocking, and there's going to be pile-ups. And again, Brock Bowers is a freak, so if you tell me the average is 4 to 6 weeks, I mean, I would imagine he'll be back 3.5, 4 weeks because he is such a freak. But I don't know. I don't know if that applies to a surgery like this. So
I just wouldn't rush him. I don't know why you'd rush him back.
I wouldn't play him until the SEC championship.
Yeah,
and only if he's 100%.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm at. And I know we talked last week, and you complained about Kyle Pitts not being 100% and getting benched before the SEC championship game in 2020, so that he could play in the SEC championship game. I am of the same belief. If Brock Bowers is 82%, and you think you need him at 89% to win the SEC championship game, or you want him at 100 for the college football playoff, and you think you can do it without him, that to me is a strategy decision. That's not removing value in the regular season, if that makes sense.
You still on this?
I'm just saying, like you said the same thing, complained about it last time with Kyle Pitts, and now you're saying it's okay to do it with Brock Bowers.
That's completely different because what they did is they just basically, because they had the East sewn up, and they didn't need to beat LSU to make the conference championship, and they were trying to.
But he wasn't
a college football playoff. He was fine. He played the week before. He played the week after. Yeah, I'm sure that day he was. They didn't.
All right,
yeah.
Let's. I'm not trying to get back to that discussion. I'm just saying the value for Georgia is not Georgia Tech. The value for Georgia, is the SEC championship or the playoff. And I doubt he is back. My personal opinion. I'm not a doctor. I've just covered the specific surgery last year. Ryan Tannehill was not close to playing in the most important football game of the season last year for the Titans 4 weeks later. And he is an athlete. Like, he does run around a lot. So while he is a quarterback and they ask him to do different things than the tight end, certainly Brock Bowers is a freak of nature. Best player in college football, in my opinion. I think that's the story to me, unfortunately, is the guy that I would have probably voted for the Heisman is now probably not going to get any votes. And I think that's a shame. And I think we lose watching him play in his final regular season games, probably. But if he is back for the playoff, that could change Georgia's championship hopes. So I don't know. SEC championship game, that's pushing it on the time frame, but I think it's possible. The human body. The human body is weird. There's no way to predict it.
It's a long shot. I was kind of kidding before, but it is a long shot that LSU makes the SEC championship. But let's just say it happens, which means they almost assuredly have to beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
They make it to the SEC championship, and it is a high-scoring game because of LSU's offense
and defense.
And their defense. And Brock Bowers is unavailable to play. Would that, not that you'd sit here and predict LSU outright, but that I have to believe that would give you more optimism that LSU could win a high-scoring game if Georgia, and they got weapons, I get it. They got plenty of weapons, but the main weapon will not if he's unavailable.
No, I think it's a great question, and I think breaking parallels points out Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky will play at the tight end position. To your point, they also
I think that was the same guy that said Delp sucked when he fumbled against Auburn.
Look, you fans are fickle, man. You can never make fans happy. We all think everybody's the greatest in the world one week, and then everybody sucks the next week, and that's just the nature of our game and the way the media covers it and the way you fans react, and it is what it is. I can complain about it all I want, but it's never going to change. I do think it depends on what they look like. Like, I want to see what they look like. If the offense looks like it did against Auburn, but all of a sudden you don't have those big chunk plays, those X plays in the fourth quarter when you're trailing. I think that's a concern. On the other side of that is I think Carson Beck is, I mean, honestly, other than Brock Bowers, Carson Beck has been the best player on the offense. Like, he's been the most consistent. He's been in control of the offense. And the quarterback is still far more important than anything else. So it depends on how they look. If they're winning games 27-14, 27-17, then I've got a concern. But if they're still going 42-12 against people, or whatever the numbers look like, I know 37-20 last week was like a dramatic underperformance by Georgia. So I think it depends on how they look. And LSU, like, LSU needs to go into Tuscaloosa and win a game against a very good defense in a hostile environment. If they do that, then I have more faith in LSU. So in your scenario, if Georgia struggles without Bowers and LSU wins the division, I still think it's probably Georgia by, I mean, what do you think the point spread would be? Georgia by 6.5, 7.5, something like that?
Versus LSU?
Yeah, in an SEC championship game, yeah.
Maybe like 13.
Oh, okay.
I think.
But you're picking them to win, though, outright.
I mean,
but Bo says, come on, Braden, us fans are completely rational. Fan is short for, people don't know this, fan is short for rational and logical. It's not short for fanatic at all. That's what fan stands for. It's short for logical. So I just think it's an important timeline to keep a note of. I happen to have some experience with it last year, and Tannehill at 4 weeks had no chance of playing in the most important game of the season for the Titans. Again, bodies are different, timelines are different. Bowers has more time. Georgia has a ton of other weapons that they're going to play, and they're going to be fine in most games. We'll see. If they get into some one-possession games like Auburn, I mean, Bowers was the hero with Beck on those final 3 drives. So
who is JT? Is he saying JD maybe?
JT Jaden Daniels.
It says JT is the best quarterback in the SEC. Justin Timberlake.
He's a basketball guy from Memphis. Okay. So let's you guys accuse me of being a fan, and there is no question I am a fan, and I'm going to show you all the difference between being a fan and being in the media. I'm going to do it right now for you guys all to see the difference, because I took my 2 daughters to Neyland Stadium, easy for me to say, for the first time in their lives. We had a cabin up in the mountains. We got to Dollywood. We did roller coasters. We saw actual real black bears at our property.
Oh, wow.
Out in the mountains. It was great. The kids went nuts. We were safely secure high above the ground in a porch and a deck that did not have any access. It was awesome. And being in Neyland Stadium to teach them about the traditions of my particular alma mater, to teach them about the chants and the cheers and the checkerboard and the colors and how disgusting the lower level of Neyland Stadium's concourse is, and just all the great stuff, man. Like, I could not have walked out of that stadium as a father and an alumni any happier. My 2 daughters are now hooked for life on this drug that is SEC football, and I could not have been happier as a fan and as a father and as an alumni.
Wait, before you finish that thought, for 9 months, you've been saying you're going to see a loss.
I know.
You know what?
I know. That's why I was so happy. That's why, although maybe I'm setting them up for failure, because now they think like Tennessee didn't. Tennessee won the game. That's not normal. Like, that's not how it works normal. But that's my analysis as a fan, as an alumni, as a father who took my 2 daughters, and like my little one, my 5-year-old's like, no, Dad, I need 2 shakers on 3rd down. Like, she got it. Like, she understood that I've got to be louder, Dad. I've got to be louder. My oldest one is singing Rocky Top. Like, they got it. It landed. As an analyst, I walked out of that stadium talking to my buddies going, they scored 1 offensive touchdown against an average football team at home in one of the most hostile environments. They clearly don't trust the quarterback. They're undisciplined. The penalties are terrible. Like, that was not a good football game if I'm a Tennessee fan trying to analyze the future of the team this year. Like, can they win some games with a great running game and a pretty good defensive line? Maybe. But I didn't come away from that with a lot of confidence in Tennessee's ability to win big games the rest of the season. That Texas A&M team is poorly coached and average, maybe slightly above average. And right now, Tennessee's 2 toughest games on the field have come against 2 average SEC teams. One of them beat the shit out of them, and the other one was on Saturday where they scored 1 offensive touchdown at home against Texas A&M. I have no confidence in this Tennessee team beating Bama, Kentucky, Missouri, and Georgia. I don't, from what I saw. But as a father and as a fan, one of the most important and memorable days of my entire life on Saturday.
Nico.
Stop it. It's also why I can't
Is it time for Nico? I mean, it literally can't be any worse. At least maybe as long as he can run.
I think it absolutely could be worse.
Okay.
I think you're underestimating average versus
I mean, he knows how to hand
terrible.
the ball off, doesn't he? I mean, that's about all Tennessee does.
Was it Rick Clausen and the bouquet toss at the back of the end zone against LSU? Like you can get worse than Joe Milton. Joe Milton made a few plays with his legs. I'll give him credit for that. But this coaching staff in big moments clearly does not trust Joe Milton to make plays.
But at the same time, Shane, I almost called you Shane. Braden.
Oh my gosh, come on now.
I do that to Steven too. But I can see it in all the comments here. We're overlooking the fact, Braden, dominant defensive performance.
Very good defensive line.
I didn't think they would run for 232. I thought if they ran for 100 on A&M, that would have been a good game because A&M's that good up front.
I was very impressed with their running game.
Ran all over their ass. So credit Josh Heupel. A lot of these coaches, and I mean, hell, the guy he was facing on Saturday, they don't adapt. It's what got me here. I'm a genius. We got to throw it 50, 60 times a game. Not Heupel. He says, okay, we can't throw it. So we're going to pound the hell out of the ball and
I agree.
Make it stop. So, credit Heupel for adjusting and doing a 180 from last season with the personnel. I don't know if you've seen this, but Nick Saban said, I don't see a difference between Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
I can't even say that without laughing. But
I don't even believe you. I don't even believe you that's a real thing.
He said it on Monday. So, but there's a little bit of a difference. I'm going to be honest with you.
So I have been saying this, unfortunately, about Joe Milton for years, back to Michigan. And I talked to an NFL scout about him this summer. And I've not ever said this publicly. Basically, I said, what does the NFL think about this guy? And the quote was, he's football dumb.
Rodney says no one is bashing Joe Milton. Oh, my.
I just called him football dumb. I literally just said that out of my mouth. And that's not a quote from me. That is a quote from an NFL scout. An NFL scout said he's football dumb.
Some people just see what they want to see, I guess.
Doesn't it look like it's football dumb to you? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, lack of awareness, situational, knowing what to do. When you get someone to jump off sides and then you have like a 3-yard rush when everybody knows you could throw it, as far as anybody humanly possible, but he won't throw it up.
I think let's go back to Heupel, because I think that's the better point. Like Heupel showing the ability to be patient, stick with something that works, evolve his offense, change his strategy. I think that's the only way they can beat Alabama this weekend. I think it's the only way they can beat Georgia in a couple of weeks. I think it's how they're going to beat Missouri or Kentucky if those things happen. I think they have to make it a dirty football game, and that's antithetical to everything we saw from Tennessee last year and everything we've seen from Josh Heupel his entire career. And so I think it's one of the first times he's ever won a game without scoring 30 points, actually, something like that for Josh Heupel. He also adjusted the running game inside the game itself. They tried up the middle, and it didn't work the first couple drives. They started getting out onto the edge, and it worked. And then once they got out onto the edge, that's when they could come back and do whatever they wanted. They also ran a lot on like 3rd and 15. Like they'd be in 3rd and long, and they're like, we don't trust Joe. Let's run the ball and set up a 4th and short. And they actually, and it worked a few times. So I'm with you. I give Heupel a lot of credit for sort of being patient and playing a different type of game. I think you have to play a similar type of game to beat Alabama. 2 major differences. Jalen Milroe is connecting on big plays down the field. Max Johnson could not. And obviously, it's a road game versus a home game. I think those are 2 major differences. But otherwise, it's kind of a similar matchup with Alabama. And I think Heupel's got to, again, have another trick and evolve again going into this weekend.
I don't know. I think I would disagree with you, Braden, as I love to do. But think back to and there's not many examples for Georgia, but I'm throwing them in this. But, when Georgia loses or comes very, very close, or when Alabama loses, they run a very similar defense, obviously. If Tennessee, well, let me ask you this first. What do teams do to beat Alabama, to beat Georgia under Kirby Smart and Nick Saban?
I mean, you need C.J. Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr., and you got to sling it all around into the outside and make it that's Georgia. I don't think that's Alabama this year, though.
I think it is.
Well, Ole Miss tried and it didn't work. I mean, the teams that have made it ugly have kept it close, right?
But Ole Miss couldn't run on Bama. That was if Ole Miss can't run, they're totally ineffective. So I just don't think that formula is going to work. You can't out-bully Alabama on the road and Georgia. I don't care where the game's played. You just can't. You can't do that. I don't think they can win. I don't think they're going to win either. But if you're asking me for here's the problem. They don't have a fucking choice, Mike. They don't have a choice. Joe Milton cannot run the other type of offense. It doesn't work. Then put someone in that can, because you have to throw it. You have to beat them, because what Alabama and Georgia force you to do is beat them down the field in one-on-one matchups, and they're not capable. I mean, if they try to do what they did to A&M, they're going to lose by multiple touchdowns. I really do think.
Well, they're a 10-point underdog for a reason. This is where my question still stands. What is the next evolution of the Heupel offense? Now that you've done it one way your entire career. Then you come back last week, and I think Andrew Cooper's right. Milton isn't as bad as everyone is saying, but yes, he's making plenty of dumb plays. I think that's right. Too much of sports talk content is reduced down to he's great or he sucks. And right. That's not the reality. He's just in the middle. He's just an average quarterback. He's going to make a couple of good plays. He's going to make some bad plays, but he's just kind of average most of the time. They lost their composure against Florida. That's a big question for me. They were completely undisciplined against A&M. That's a big question for me. There's nothing that says that they should go in there and win the game. But I don't think Bama's making anybody feel like they're unbeatable either. And if they can make it a dirty, I guess I'm disagreeing, because I don't know if Joe Milton has another evolution to his game that Heupel can deploy. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can ask Nico. I mean, I think that's a cute punchline that you use to get
Gaston Moore, put his ass in there. He looks good in the spring game.
You know that they don't have a better chance to win with those guys. You know that.
I literally don't see how it could be any worse, Braden. I really don't. I mean, Milton had that nice run where he trucked a guy that fired everybody up.
They're 5-1. They're 5-1,
baby. He's back. And then he threw a pick right at the safety. It's what the hell? At home, you know what I mean? And he threw multiple picks, I believe, against South Carolina too.
The end zone throw. Here's what I will say about being.
And that was the turning point against Florida. Just punted it right in the damn air. You cannot do that.
Well, I could name 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the SEC that are worse. Just so it could get worse. It absolutely could get worse. 3 of them play for Auburn. What's interesting is being in the stadium, the amount of just people being dumbfounded at a decision. Again, the interception in the end zone, you're just like, what? People are looking around what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? So I think he makes mistakes. I think he has a ceiling, but I think this is the same thing we've known about Joe Milton forever. And I still think his ability to run the football in some designed plays selectively, with
not on fourth down for some reason when he had it.
Well, that's another moment. Dude, what are you doing? It's 4th and 1. You're 250 pounds. Put your shoulder down. And then when it's 4th and 13, he does decide to run and put his shoulder down, and he's 7 yards short. And you're like, dude, I don't understand. So I'm not disagreeing with all of that analysis.
Yeah.
Bama can be beaten if Tennessee plays a perfect football game. Tennessee can't have the penalties. They can't have the pre-snap problems. They can't have the mistakes in the red zone. They can't have the missed overthrows. They can play a game and beat Bama. I absolutely think Tennessee can do it. They have to be almost perfect, and then Milroe has to make some mistakes. You have to stop out. You need 27 for Tennessee has to be a monster, just the way he's been the entire season, because that dude's been a monster. Like everywhere you go, you see 27. You see 27. You watch on film, you watch the 22. You're in the stands, you see 27. That guy's got to attack Jalen Milroe the entire game. And so I think they can win. I just think they have to be perfect to do it. And I don't know what the next evolution of his offense looks like. If Saban's sitting there watching the film of the A&M game, what else do you have? Like, we're going to take shots down the field. Like, Heupel clearly doesn't trust him to do that.
Yeah, well, clearly they're handicapped with what they've got to work with, but it is what it is. I don't think that formula is going to work.
I agree. I've got Alabama winning the game. So
I think you try something different, even if it's not worked yet. I mean, I think you have to.
Well, I would like, and there was one play early in the game against A&M where they ran a play action, and Joe took the deep shot down the right sideline because that's like apparently the only player he sees on the field. There was a 17-yard under route that was wide open on that pass play, and I'm like, those are the routes you want to run. You need to run the quicker, go off play action, go off a first down play action in particular, but don't try to take the 70-yard shot or the 40-yard shot. Hit that 15-yard dig route.
Yeah.
Run a guy off and then have the second guy that's split out wide cut underneath because that guy is going to be open. So, I mean, also I think you can attack Alabama's corners. They make plays, but they also make mistakes. So I think you can attack them, especially if they're going to play man and on play action in first down. But I still think it needs to be a low-scoring rock fight for Tennessee to win. I think it needs to be 20-17.
Can you get on the line with Heupel? Give me this information. Come on, Braden. Come on. They need to do something.
I'm in. They're 5-1 and have all their big games still ahead of them. So I don't know what it can be so much. It can't get any worse. It can't get any worse.
I'm talking about the offense. I mean, they're not 5-1 because of the offense. I'll tell you that. Aside from an elite running game, which has very little to do with the quarterback right now.
The running backs are great. They're fun. They're fun to watch. On the flip side, I know you've been anti-Jimbo Fisher for a long time.
Never.
I don't think
he's doing a great job.
I don't think Jimbo Fisher I think this is, again, totally reductive to just say, oh, Jimbo Fisher sucks. I don't think Jimbo Fisher sucks, but I think he is what he is. And is it Bill Parcells? You are what your record says you are. Like, he's essentially a 500 SEC football coach who wins most of his non-conference games against overmatched opponents, although he's lost a few the last couple of years, who dominated the ACC with a superior roster and won a national championship with a collective of players that is just rare in this game. He is what he is. He's an okay, average SEC football coach who is a great recruiter. So if Texas A&M want to spend $60 million to get rid of that, that's their choice. If they want to stay average and reduce that buyout for another year, that's their choice. I'm tired of discussing the Jimbo Fisher fired thing. It's not that they have too many athletes. It's an average coached football team. It's an average SEC team with an average record who's got an average coach with an average everything. I don't know.
I think you're being too impatient. We need to give this man 7 seasons to.
I can't work with you
to win 9 games in a non-COVID year. You know what I mean? Who cares that Texas and Tennessee and LSU and Ole Miss and let's see who else? Dan Mullen at Florida. Wait, am I missing anybody?
I think he beat Dan Mullen at Florida, ironically.
Well, I know, but at least he won 10 games, didn't he, at Florida? I'm pretty sure. Second year, I think.
Braden throwing out the 2020 stats to make his case as well. I see. I don't understand what that means.
Well, not counting COVID year, but
is he saying what? But what stat am I saying? Like that he's a 500 coach? Is that what it's like?
Not that year, Braden.
No, they finished. I'm the one who's argued with you the other way and said, no, they finished 5th in the rankings and their only loss was to Bama despite giving up 50 points in that game, and that they beat Florida pretty soundly, who played in the SEC championship, and they were one spot away from the playoff.
If there's ever another pandemic, hire Jimbo because he'll do a hell of a job for that year. But
I just don't even say those words, man.
That year alone, we gotta. We can't be clinging to that. That was 3 years ago. In 3 years, a good coach at a place like A&M can win and win big. And
if you told me Urban Meyer was the head coach at Texas A&M tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
who, for the record, is a giant piece of human shit.
Mm-hmm.
They would win instantly.
Yeah.
They would win instantly.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that bad. I mean, hell, they could probably hire Mike Elko, and it's probably a better hire than Jimbo. They could probably hire Dan Lanning. I think that'd be a better. He'd do a better job in Jimbo. Dan Mullen. I know that everybody hates Dan Mullen for some reason. He's a hell of a coach. Just needs to hire him some recruiters, and he'll do fine. Heupel, Kiffin, Brian Kelly. I mean, we can go on down the list. I mean,
but not Mark Stoops, right?
I mean, he's average, but they're about the same. They're about the same, except Mark Stoops never had Jameis Winston and 11 NFL starters on defense in 1 year.
I was going to say, or any of the resources that Texas A&M has ever had.
Right.
Or 100,000 seat stadium, or recruiting in Texas, or any of that other stuff. I love James Pierce Jr. That's why I was just talking about him. I think what's interesting here's the thing I have about firing coaches. I think it's easy. It's like being in love with the backup quarterback, like you are with Nico. It's like fans who get upset at Mike Bobo when Georgia was actually one of the top 5 offenses in the country when he was running things back in the day. Everyone hates the offensive coordinator. Everyone loves the backup quarterback. And everyone wants their coach fired without a plan in place. If you're in charge of Texas A&M and you fire Jimbo Fisher and you raise that oil money and you spend $55 million, which would be the largest buyout in college football history by almost 2x, what's your plan? Like, who's the guy that you're going to go hire that is guaranteeing to be better and especially recruiting better than Texas A&M? And that's my problem is that
Dion. Boom, fixed it for you.
Dion can't coach his way out of a fucking paper bag, and nobody even likes the guy. Stop.
We got to fire Ross Bjork too, because he's the reason we're in this mess. And that guy, I mean, one misstep after another for that guy. That you're asking for a plan. There's a plan. Fire Bjork, get rid of Jimbo, bring you a quality AD. They can attract like Hunter Yurachek, and I mean, I think they'll have their pick of any coach. This is going to be the best job. They just got to do it quickly because Saban is going to retire here in a couple weeks. So, and then that job potentially, I mean, it's a better job, but
Saban's retiring now in a couple weeks?
Okay. But the expectations there are sky high. I mean, A&M may be if I'm a coach and I'm looking at both jobs, I'd probably take A&M where they'll give you 8 years to just win 8 games every year and they're happy. But at Alabama, you win 8 games year 1, your ass is on the hot seat already. So I could argue that A&M's a better job post Nick Saban.
It's not, but it's
maybe not 5-10 years, but immediately I think it would be.
They're both elite jobs. I mean, Alabama's the best job in America for a reason, but they're both elite jobs. You can win national championships there, and that's all that matters. They have national title DNA, which is unlimited resources and access to talent. Tyler, you asked about Lance Leipold. I've known him for a very, very long time. He is an excellent, excellent football coach. His offenses, what they are doing at Kansas, are unlike anything else. They won multiple national championships at UW Whitewater. He got Buffalo into the MAC championship game multiple times, and now Kansas is good. He is an extremely good football coach. I don't know if that type of guy works at a place like Texas A&M. He mentioned Chris Kleiman as well at Kansas State. I don't know if like an older coach who's more of a culture builder who's going to take a while to build. Like, I don't know if those kind of guys work in like the deep shark infested waters of SEC recruiting. You kind of need an assassin. You have to be Kirby Smart.
How about this comment from Ron? You can't. It's never proven you can win a national championship at A&M. I think that's a fair comment because they've not done it. But couldn't you say the same thing about Florida before they landed? A good coach, then they were dominant. Couldn't you say the same damn thing about LSU? And they hired a guy named Nick Saban, and then they're dominant. You know what I mean? They went like 50, 60 years without winning a national championship. It doesn't matter what happened the last 80 years. It really doesn't. What matters is what you'd be inheriting, where you're at, what conference you're in, the talent you can get, the coaches you can get. They give you all the resources. There's no voodoo over the College Station that they can't win. They hired poorly, and it's not worked out. But hell, I mean, hiring Dabo made Clemson a national champion. You know what I mean? Like
an interim wide receiver coach. And here, what's interesting about what you're talking about, because I agree, no school is immune to bad decision making. Doesn't matter how many. Doesn't matter how much prestige you have, how much tradition, how much resources, how your 6-hour radius around your campus, how many athletes are in that 6-hour radius. Those are the things that determine championship DNA, in my opinion. I think there are two things that determine championship DNA. You got to have unlimited resources, and you got to have access to talent. Those are the two things. And Texas A&M has both of those things in spades. Georgia went 40 years. Clemson went 40 years. Texas has gone a long time. Tennessee wandered the desert for 15 years. You can hire bad people, put them into important places. Every school has done it. It happens everywhere. And LSU from 19, and this is what I think this is really interesting. And I think a lot of people miss this. From 1971 until Nick Saban, LSU was largely irrelevant. They won the SEC, I think, in 71. They hired Nick Saban. But what did he do when he was hired? He built the infrastructure. He changed how they were committed to spending money on the resources at LSU, and he built out the program on the back end and turned it into a machine. Dabo did the same thing when he sat down and got the job at Clemson. He had a binder that thick and said, here's what we have to do. We have to build out the infrastructure. That is what you have to do to change the program. This is what Urban Meyer was doing at Florida. This is what Billy Napier is trying to do right now, is build out the infrastructure on the back end to have a big, massive machine that produces high-level football. But you can only do that if you've got access to players and unlimited resources. And Texas A&M has both of those. So I agree with you.
Yeah, LSU was not a blue blood. I mean, this was a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, LSU was absolutely so again.
No, before they hired Saban.
Well, I disagree. They had won championships before. They'd won Heisman's before. Like I think that there's
like I remember when they beat Steve Spurrier, and they played him every year. They beat him like once. From what I remember, like it took forever, and it was like a damn parade.
You have to also talk about eras, and I always use 98 as a BCS because it's the start of the championship game era, but it's also the invention of recruiting websites and the proliferation of online recruiting, and that's an era of football. Like the coaching salaries in the late 80s and early 90s is laughable compared to what the money and the technology changed the game around between 98 and like 02. That's when the game changed, and that's when Nick Saban came to LSU. That's when Tennessee was really at its peak. That's when the game. I don't want to say passed Steve Spurrier by because that's not true, but like Spurrier didn't recruit. He wasn't out there recruiting like at midnight the way Nick Saban and Kirby Smart do. He's in the dirt drawing plays and playing golf. Like
here's how many games LSU won every year prior to Saban: 3, 4, 9, 10, 7, 4, 5, 2,
the
5,
Jerry DiNardo
5,
years.
4, 8, 10, 9, 9, 8, 4, 8, 3, 7, 7, 8, 8, 6, 4, 5. What a blue blood they were.
Well, they were only playing.
What are we talking about?
First of all, those 9s and 8s were only like 10 and like 11 game seasons. So you got to take that into. Again, I think it's to not call LSU a blue blood. I think I don't really care. I can disagree. I don't think it matters. What matters is they have elite resources and access to players. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And if you've got those two things, you can win a national championship. And largely, other than Colorado, Georgia Tech, and in the 90s, early 90s, no one has won a national championship without those two things. Nobody.
Yeah.
BYU in the 80s. The game changed in the late 90s. The money changed. The structure of the business changed. It all changed. And you got to have money and you got to have resources. LSU's got all of them. It's not worth arguing whether or not they were a blue blood in 1987. I don't think it matters.
But that's the same argument I'm making. It's today. They are now. A&M is now. It doesn't matter that A&M hadn't won in 80 whatever years. That's irrelevant. You put, let's say, who's a top 10 coach that is Josh Heupel. Put Josh Heupel at A&M today.
He needs to win a division first.
Well, Dave Bartu says he's a top. Okay, Dabo. Well, Dabo's kind of fading, but I don't know. Name a guy. Kirby. Put Kirby in College Station tomorrow. He's going to win a national championship probably in 2 years, 3 years.
No, I agree. I totally agree. Nick Saban at A&M wins a national title. Kirby Smart at A&M wins a national title. Urban Meyer at A&M wins a national title. That's it. I don't disagree with you. We're saying the same things here. So but Jimbo Fisher also is one of the few guys that's done it. He's got the ring. That's earned him a lot of equity, and now that equity is starting to run out, and that's where we are. And I mean that is what it is. So they're not winless. They're not winless in the SEC like Hugh Freeze, Sam Pittman, and Zach Arnett combined 0-10. So he's better than them.
Two of those guys are first-year coaches, though. But do you put any stock in the fact that Lane Kiffin, and sometimes he does it too much. He goes for it on, he plays that analytics game, and Jimbo is like anti-analytics, and the fact that Lane beats him every year, I have to think that some of that is related.
I think that it's 2023, and if you don't use technology to give you as much information to make as many smart decisions as possible, I think you're a fucking idiot.
Well, you just called him that, not me. But
I think yeah. I mean, I did. I don't think analytics are the entire thing.
No,
I think they're a part of it. And I think if you're a human being that has any job and you don't take all of the information you can to do the best job, then I think you're failing your job. So ultimately, that's why he brought in Bobby Petrino and turned over the play calling duties. So. It's a bummer that he lost Connor Wigman. Max Johnson's a nice backup. I would have liked to have seen this team play with Connor Wigman the entire season and see what it would have looked like. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's get to some positive stuff here and stop talking about negative stuff. Missouri and Florida, 2 second halves that were just spectacular. I got to give Missouri a ton of credit on the road in a tough environment against a solid team, not a great team, not a bad team, but an okay team in Kentucky, to go down 14-0, get punched in the face, and come storming back the way they did. And it could have been worse. Like, they were kicking field goals, and it could have been worse had they finished some drives in the end zone. Same thing with Florida. They're not as good, I don't think, as Missouri. I don't think South Carolina's as good as Kentucky. So I think it's kind of a tier down on both sides. But you got to give Florida a ton of credit for how they went into that building. Tough place to play, hostile environment, down 2 touchdowns late, down 2 scores late in that game to come all the way back. Shane Beamer, it was very undude. It was very un-Beamer-like to watch that game and kind of go back and watch it. But you got to give Florida and Drinkwitz and Missouri and Billy Napier, Graham Mertz, Brady Cook, you got to give all those guys a ton of credit because those offenses are playing really good football right now.
You know what's interesting? Beamer, obviously most people have seen the press conference where he's calling out his players. He did it during the broadcast. They were asking him too. Because I think the first quarter Florida had 14 or something. I can't remember exactly, but they were like, how do you slow them down? He's like, we're calling them, and they ain't doing it. Same thing in the press. Yeah. He did it during the game. So I thought that was pretty jarring, but
I don't think it's a good. I think there's a very easy way to be a coach from a PR standpoint. Is it just like Sam Pittman does it all the time? It's very easy. Just take the blame for everything. Just take the blame.
Right.
I know that maybe if you're on the hot seat, that's not ideal, but then maybe don't suck at football. But if you just say hey man, I gotta put them in a better position to succeed. I gotta make better calls. You just blame yourself. You protect your part of your job as the head coach is to protect your players and your coaching staff, and you got to do that publicly, even if it's not true. That's part of your job, and I don't think it's a huge deal, but it seems like an easy win if you just are I let my team down tonight, or hey, I got to come up. We got to call better plays.
Credit Billy Napier for getting them the sleep they needed. You know what I mean?
My guy.
That's another. I don't know if you'd call that quite a signature win, but I think it's fun. I think that's a not signature, but statement win. That's his second one of the season, and they're sitting here in a second place in the SEC East. People can't seem to grasp that they're second heading into the bye. So, and I get it. It's going to get tougher at the back end. So may not stay there, but hell, they could win the SEC East. As crazy as that is to say,
no, they can't.
They can win it if they beat Georgia.
Here's why it's not a signature win. I think it was an important win. I think it was, you mentioned his road statistics as a coach. Important to win a game away from Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Right. There's no question about that.
There's many more coming.
But to be down by multiple scores late in the game on the road against the 2-4 football team is not exactly a statement victory. Was it a good win? Yes. Yes, it was. Was it an important win? Yes, Yes, it was. Does it show progress? Yes, absolutely, especially when you have the number 3 recruiting class in America. It's all going well for Florida right now. Graham Mertz he looks like a totally different quarterback at Florida in that offense than he did at Wisconsin. And by the way, Ricky Pearsall, hot damn. That dude can play, man. What a ball player. That guy, that team, that offense, I love watching what they do pre-snap. I love how complicated it all is. I think it's Graham Mertz has taken to it. I think Billy Napier deserves the credit for what he's doing. And patience sometimes is actually a good thing in the SEC. Sometimes.
Well, he is in 1.5 year in. Let's but I guess I get what you're saying.
We've talked about this too many times, so I don't want to rehash it, but you have to acknowledge context of when he took the job. The roster was devoid of talent. Dan Mullen had left it empty. They didn't have practice facility. They barely even had an indoor practice facility in fucking Gainesville, Florida, of all places.
I don't think you can.
You have to take all that into account.
I don't think you do, not with the portal and not with NIL, because it has shown many times over that you can flip it quickly.
Not build a long-term sustainable plan. No one has done that.
Tennessee looks pretty sustainable. LSU looks pretty sustainable to me.
LSU and Tennessee have facilities that
Nobody's
were already
facilities,
built.
Bro.
No, we're talking about the infrastructure, the recruiting infrastructure, the assassins.
I'm talking about the roster.
The NIL,
you said the roster.
Collective. I'm talking about all of it. The roster, number one. Tennessee.
They didn't have the roster. They hired one hell of a coach.
LSU had recruited very well. LSU had recruited top 10 classes.
I think they were down to 36 scholarship players, though.
They've also lost 6 games in the last 2 years. So
a division title in the toughest division. So I just don't think these excuses fly at a place like Florida.
I'm so tired of having this argument. They're showing progress. They're recruiting They have a top 5 recruiting class. It's all trajectories up at Florida right now. There's going to be some losses at the end of the season, so I'm prepared for that. So I'm not going to be surprised when that happens.
You were the one that said, "Hey, 2-4, you can't be losing to 2-4 Carolina or something like that."
No, I said you can't call it a state. God, you fucking taking all the words out of my mouth. You called it a state. I don't think you can call a statement win a win over a 4-loss team, a 2-4 team where you're trailing by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. Like I don't think that's a statement win.
Well, he doesn't have enough wins to. I mean, that kind of was for him.
I think the statement was beating the shit out of Tennessee. Punching Tennessee in the face, punching your boy Josh Heupel right in the face.
You just said Tennessee's not any good.
I think they're 8-4.
You said they're the worst 5-1 team in the country. That's what you said, and now you're like that was one.
You're the one who said, "Oh, can't get any worse. Can't get any worse. 5-1."
I mean, there's a chance Tennessee's like 5-4 here in a couple weeks.
I think they will beat Kentucky on the road. I think they lose to Bama. I think they lose to Georgia. And if they lose to Missouri, I win my bet, and you owe me a bottle of whiskey.
What is it? I'm a virgin, according to this man.
I mean, I know you have a girlfriend, so I can confirm.
She may be a virgin, though. I don't know. Who knows?
Sources. I don't want to talk about your sex life.
Okay. Well, I just didn't understand how that got into it, but.
I agree with RC's point that when you twist all these words around to make your little laughs, that it decreases the value of the conversation.
Win. Thank you, Tristan. He knows what's up.
There we go.
That was epic.
How about Missouri? Let's talk about how good Missouri is, because
10-win Mizzou. Cousin Shane called it. Well, all off season, Braden said to hell with Mizzou. I'm just kidding. No, you were on the bandwagon too. Credit to you.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody said 10 win though, other than
first good thing you've said in 50 minutes.
Cousin Shane, he said 11 wins at first. Then he's like, well, wait, maybe 10.
Let's not go crazy.
They could still win 11.
Now, if they go 10 wins though, that's a win over Tennessee, a team they have had trouble beating.
We got to give Coach of the Year, right, to Drink if he wins 10.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no question. The Florida Missouri game is one of the weirdest football games that is ever played every year. It's so great. He owns Drink right now is undefeated against Shane Beamer. They're going to play South Carolina at home this week, so they've got to figure that out. But if they kind of quote unquote handle their business, like 9-3 is like almost like not given, but like 9-3 is there. If they can beat Tennessee is like the one that I think is interesting because Missouri has struggled against this Tennessee Josh Heupel offense. Ironically, former offensive coordinator.
Right, and hey, another credit to this is just credit to drink show here, but hey, he's an offensive minded guy. He coaches quarterbacks. He calls the plays, and what he said is that's not working with me doing that. And he didn't have to say that. He said, oh, "Fire my ass. Give me, I don't know what it would have been, 20 million or." I just made that up, but however many million to make me go away. He didn't do that. He said, all right, this is not working. I'm going to bring someone in that can develop quarterback. Just got a quarterback to the NFL. And he was the one, which I didn't care for it at the time. And I still don't think you call out your fans right after your biggest win, but he was doing it to protect his player. And his player was playing lights out ever since then. So I think, it clearly worked for him and his locker room. So, I mean, all credit in the world to, and not only that, but bringing in, but I'm trying to circle back to where I was going to start here. He likes to run his mouth, and I like that. I like these coaches that run their mouth because I love it too. I think it's boring as hell if they're all going to be Kirby smart.
Well, and they get to,
I know for a fact Kirby's he's got a great personality, but he doesn't show it, and that's his prerogative because he wins every damn time. He don't have to, but. Will Muschamp could have saved him, perhaps, at South Carolina. It can save you, but it can also get you in trouble. If you're running it and you're losing all these games, Eli's kind of shut that down, and this is his best team yet. So, again, another credit to Drink. He should be, right now, SEC Coach of the Year.
I can't disagree. I always like to try to disagree with you, but I can't. I agree. I think he's done the best job. And part of that is knowing when to be a good CEO, as you said, bringing in Kirby Moore. Brady Cook was clearly hurt all of last season because this looks like a totally different player this year. All those young five-star recruits, the freshmen, the Burdens of the world, like they're all developing into guys that are stars. There's a couple of really interesting comments about like Roger there. This was the entire summer, 8 months, where I told you guys, Orange Bowl Joe is not a thing. It doesn't exist. And guess what? We have not seen him one time this year. I do think the question, though, earlier – in the comment section from Dylan, can Tennessee score with Mizzou or does their defense stop Mizzou? I think ultimately pressuring Brady Cook is the question because Missouri's defense, it's not elite, but it's pretty good. And Joe Milton has not shown that he can make plays. They're going to run the ball in Missouri. But if it gets into a shootout, I think that this is what's crazy about Tennessee and Josh Heupel. Shootouts don't benefit their style of play this year. It just doesn't. They need to play 27 30 31 to 21 kind of games. Like they've got to play and that's quote unquote low scoring in college football now. These games that are going like the games that LSU plays, I don't think Tennessee can play those games unless it's like hand the ball off 85 times.
So you're saying the new clock rules are favoring Tennessee once again. Heupel, masterful, adjusting to the new rules of college football.
You mentioned Kiffin and Ole Miss. I want to ask you about this game at Auburn, plus 6.5. Auburn's a 6.5 point underdog at home. Ole Miss is 1-8 in Auburn their last 9 trips. Of course, Auburn 6-1 in their last 7 overall. This is one of those where I think Ole Miss could be really good, but I'm not sure yet. I think the loss to Bama is starting to look like a pretty decent loss. The win over LSU is looking better because LSU keeps getting better. But this is one of those games where Auburn's strength, if they have one, is on defense. They've been way better at home. Ole Miss is rested. There's no real excuse for Ole Miss not to go down to the Plains and win that game. And if they do, I think they put themselves in a college football playoff type of situation. Because when I was doing my rankings, I'm sitting there looking at these teams around the country that are 10, 11, 12, 13 in the rankings, which is Utah, Notre Dame, Oregon State, North Carolina. I think Ole Miss is in that group, but you can't go on the road and lose to Auburn and be in that group.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it with Ole Miss. I mean, they're dead to me when they lost to Alabama, I guess. But
that's not an overreaction at all.
I don't know. They just.
How dare you lose to Alabama?
That Alabama, yeah. There's no excuse, and I get it. They beat LSU. That was nice, but I don't know. I think that was a fluky game. I really do. And I think if there was 30 more seconds in that game, LSU would have won it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I usually am.
I'm sorry. I'm distracted. Comment wars. Braden is not a virgin because he had sex with my wife. Don't think I forgot you, SOB. I'm genuinely concerned about that.
But
it's been a long time since I had sex with somebody other than my wife. If that makes me a big old loser, that's fine. But it's been a long time.
I was talking with I don't know how to transition from that, but I was talking to Bo Bounce, hosts a big radio show down there in Mississippi, and he said, there's issues in the locker room, and particularly with Judkins. So,
and then he went for like 177 against LSU.
Yeah. What else has he done though? You know what I mean?
You mean?
I mean, if they can get that from him every week, yeah, they could beat anybody because he's that good. But
this is why I'm asking the question. Like, if they go into Auburn and run the football, Auburn's not a good team. They're average to below average, but they're okay on defense and they're better at home. So if you can go on the road and run the football against Auburn, okay,
that does nothing for me. I think I got Auburn as the 15th or 14th best team in the SEC right now. So
yeah, they're better than Vanderbilt.
Yeah. So no, that does nothing for me.
You're right, RC. My wife is the GOAT. There's no question about that. I just think there is something to be said about when you are the favorite, when you're playing in a tough situation, and you're sort of in this prove it situation. Like that was Tennessee last week. Like you're coming off a bye. A&M is limping. You're at home. You got to prove that you belong. Like prove that you're the dog. And Tennessee figured out a way to do that. Even if it was ugly, they figured out a way to do it. You can't discount those types of games. Like I know you want to put everything into one of two boxes where everything sucks or everything's great. And like that's not where the world lives. The world lives in the middle. And for Ole Miss, a program that's like never competing for championships since integration, going on the road as a one-loss team this late in the season and beating Auburn, even if it's first year Hugh Freeze and they're not any good. Again, I just told you the stats. They've only won there one time in 9 tries. And one of the other wins they've had was vacated because it was Hugh Freeze, of course. So like, I just think that you don't like Georgia's win at Auburn. College football is strange. Sometimes you play. Sometimes other teams play really well. Sometimes you don't. And if you can figure out ways to win in those situations, that to me shows me as much about a team as anything. So I mean, sure, do you want to dominate a bad team? Of course you do, but that's not what Ole Miss does traditionally. And for them to go to Auburn, especially with all the backdrop of the Auburn coaching saga with Kiffin and everything, both teams have it circled. I don't know. I think this is a really important weekend for Ole Miss. This is a game that old Mississippi would lose. And if you're new
Kiffin,
if you're new Sip, go win
it. He loves to drop these games too. So yeah, I mean
that's what I'm saying.
You might be onto something, but no, it would not impress me.
Here's the other thing.
They're dead to me.
All right, whatever. You're impossible. Mississippi State, Arkansas. We're finally gonna have a win in the SEC. That's going on. I will say this about the Army LSU game. That's a 30-point spread. I would take Army in the 30 points there.
I heard Army likes to throw it around now these days compared to their old selves. And LSU can't stop anybody. So no, come on, man. 30. I mean, we talking halftime spread or full game? Because
no, they're gonna run the clock because of the triple option, and they're gonna throw it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying LSU wins the game easily. I'm just saying I wouldn't touch the 30 points.
See, if Dan Mullen was the coach, he'd sit Jaden Daniels and Harold Perkins and make up some injury and just say we need them for the tail end, and then they drop it to Army.
When does the stand-up tour?
Kelly.
When does the stand-up tour start? Like, are you doing zanies like after the season's over, or like?
I would love to. Yeah,
working on some material.
No, LSU's on hater, baby. I mean, we're back. We're gearing up for Bama.
LSU looks better and better each week. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
They're I mean, doing what they did to Auburn is not all that impressive, but it was exactly what they're supposed to do.
Yeah,
which is at home against Auburn. Get your receivers down the field and throw the football to them, and then mysteriously,
how about Slim Kiffin to Florida?
It'd be fun. I mean, I don't understand why people would be upset at Billy Napier currently, but it's just me.
It's boring. Boring as hell. Worried about
he's
sleep.
boring. He's boring.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about boring, as you just alluded to? You're like, I wish all these coaches talk more shit. You know the two most boring coaches are the ones with all the championships. Saban and Smart are the two most boring coaches, and they have all.
No, I would strongly disagree with that. Zach Arnett is he's number one on the board right now.
Oh, boring.
Billy Napier is right in his coattails there. Hell,
Clark Lee's speaking abilities up pretty high on the boring list.
Hell, Nick Saban, he just said a curse word in his press conference. That ain't boring to me. You know, he'll get on your ass.
He did didn't he get a caller from didn't he take a caller a couple of weeks ago on his local
that ain't
show?
Boring.
And I think, but Saban, that's because it's new. It's new Saban. This is the first year he's ever been like this.
This is cool Saban. He's on Pat McAfee's trying to act like he's not about to retire and you know, he's 90 years old, whatever.
Look, I think we all agree that if Saban retires, 13 schools in the SEC are excited about the future of the product.
Let me ask you this here, Braden, because we got some Gators in here. They think I'm mad at Billy Napier.
No,
would you rather have Billy? Would you rather have Billy Napier or Josh Heupel? Is that even debatable?
I mean, on paper, Josh Heupel right now, yeah. But
only a Florida fan would say Billy Napier.
One team was completely composed and ran the football down the throat of the other team this year, and that wasn't Josh Heupel.
Oh, you talking about Kentucky playing Florida? Is that what you were talking about?
No, I was talking. You mentioned. You said Josh Heupel,
right? Who's Billy undefeated against Mark Stoops? Lest we forget.
What does Mark Stoops have to do with Billy Napier and Josh Heupel? What are you doing?
Said run it. You said run at will. I was thinking Kentucky facing Billy Napier. Wasn't that 2 years in a row? Isn't Billy Napier 0-2 against Mark Stoops?
It's because Mark Stoops is the greatest coach that's ever lived.
Oh, right.
Don't you know that? In the history of Kentucky football.
Yep. They're all saying Napier. Yeah, Napier's he's awesome. I hope he never leaves.
Should have beaten Tennessee last year and torched them this year. So,
I didn't realize Tennessee was their standard, but that's how far they've fallen.
What are you talking about? Tennessee and Florida was the thing.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
With all due respect to Drinkwitz and to Stoops and to Beamer, I love all those guys. They're entertaining, and I think they're varying degrees of pretty damn good.
Right.
But the big three in the East is Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. That's it. We were talking earlier about national championship DNA. The three teams that have competed for and won national championships are Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. The rest of the East has not, and that's it.
Wait, Florida smoked South Carolina last week?
That is not what happened.
I must have missed
that. No. Tennessee got destroyed by South Carolina last year.
Right.
Gave up a 60 burger, and then Florida beat the piss out of them.
That's because the quarterback got hurt. Come on. That ain't your Heisman contender goes down?
Yeah, when it was 35-13 when he was still playing though.
Would they have won if Anthony Richardson got hurt? I don't think so. I mean, that was elite. That was an elite South Carolina squad. About? I'm trying to remember last season.
Florida beat the shit out of South Carolina. South Carolina beat the tar out of Tennessee. When Hendon Hooker played at least half of that game.
He got hurt. That's what happened. They were shocked.
Yeah, he plays corner. He covers those receivers. I forgot about that. And then Napier has now trounced Tennessee, made Tennessee shit down their leg on national television a couple of weeks ago. So I think Heupel's better on paper right now. He's accomplished more. I think it's pretty clear. But their group of five careers were virtually identical. And Billy Napier's having a blossoming second season the same way Josh Heupel had a blossoming second season last year. So right now, on paper, they're 1-1 against each other. The home team has won both games. Their G5 careers were pretty similar. Really good at UCF for Heupel, really good at Louisiana for Billy Napier. Both recruiting at a top 10 level. Like, they're actually way closer than people want to admit. But it's because Heupel's further along. One more year.
I would also throw Heupel into the boring list. I forgot. His press conferences are just unwatchable.
I just think he's a regular dude. It's just what he is.
Yeah, but give me something, you know?
All right.
Why can't they be more like Spurrier?
Give me 5-star reviews on the podcast app when you go listen to this show. Tell everybody about SEC Football Live. Of course, you can get to me at Braden Gall at 440 Sports. You can get to at Michael W. Bratton as well. Please go over to the 440 Sports YouTube page for individual game previews. We post those videos, myself and Stephen Lassen, every single week, so go check those out. I've been right about basically every single game, so please go give us some reviews, give us a subscription. We really, really appreciate it. That SEC podcast as well. Y'all know the drill. Thank you guys all for your comments as well. Third Saturday in October. I got Bama, but I think it's close, and I think it's a dirty, nasty rock fight. So there we go. For Mike, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.